So like Assault on Arkham should have been the Suicide Squad movie.
We don't speak about Suicide Squad on these shows.
Did they make a live action movie about that? I might have missed it. I should check it out one of these days.
Hey everybody, welcome to a very special episode of Crossover Event, a show where nerds collide. This week we have a special guest. Dinkar and I are going to be speaking to Shaun Fanthome. That's his name. Let me quickly introduce him. Apart from being friend of the fruit, he's an incredible lawyer. He's been practicing law for many years, but right now he's become a podcaster extraordinaire. He runs the Maed in India network with May Thomas, and has always indulged us whenever we want to do some crazy things with Geek Fruit. So we're super happy that he's a nerd and that he's here with Dinkar and I on Crossover Event.
I'm super excited to be here because you guys are like encouraging me to talk about something I rarely get to talk about.
But I mean, we already know, but for everybody who's watching, who and what are you going to be talking about this week?
I decided I want to talk about something that's been like bothering me for a really, really long time. And that's like the idea that DC has kind of ruined its entire movie universe when simultaneously they've had a great animated movie universe. So yeah, that's what I want to talk about. I want to just rant about how unfortunate this entire DC universe is.
You might have picked the two perfect people to talk to this about. This has been what we've been saying for years. And a lot of DC fans agree. But why do you like the DC animated universe so much, Shaun?
Okay, so I'm going to do this like in a little bit of like history. You have to go back to 2012, right? You've come to like the end of the Nolan-verse, like The Dark Knight Rises is coming out and Avengers is also out the same year. So like Marvel is finally taking over the space. And like somewhere in the corner of this universe, DC was releasing like animated movies. And there were a couple of these animated movies that are like come out which before 2012, which were really, really good. But I particularly like a movie that came out called Justice League Doom, which is like a kind of a remake of a really, really popular Justice League comic book called Tower of Babel, where basically Ra's al Ghul gets hold of Batman's contingency plans for all the other League members and how like everyone loses trust in him. It's exactly like that moment which I think like all of this DC universe should have started off with like this idea of like there is a little bit of mistrust within the Justice League or within the heroes community is where I thought it should have started off with. Because immediately after that is perhaps like the movie that actually everyone considers to kick off this universe called the Flashpoint Paradox, which I think they're trying to make a remake of right now also. I don't think that you could have like started a movie universe better than this, because the way this like the reason I think Flashpoint Paradox is so important is like how this entire series ends at the end also. It's like a great like it ties the entire series off in a bow perfectly. So with Flashpoint Paradox, one of the main reasons I think that it was great is because even the casting in Flashpoint Paradox was amazing. They had Michael B. Jordan playing Cyborg, like Killmonger from the Marvel Universe, who I think would have been the perfect Cyborg for the actual DC Universe too.
Yeah, I mean, I like the guy who played Ray Fisher, if I want to say is his name. I think he, like the point that you're making, right? Like Justice League didn't do much with the characters that it had, and it squandered like a few opportunities. So, but I think he was fine. But yeah, Michael B. Jordan in that movie is really good.
Flashpoint as a comic book is like a really interesting comic book because it's like based on the idea that we go into this alternative reality where Bruce Wayne dies and Thomas Wayne and Martha Wayne like survive, and like Thomas Wayne becomes Batman and Martha Wayne becomes Joker. So like it's a fucking amazing comic book.
It is really good. It is so good.
So that entire like journey that they take you through as to understanding the consequences of changing time is like really, really, really interesting.
You're saying that if they had to do a Justice League movie, and I know they did one, and they're doing a rehash of that now, which we'll get to, you're saying that a good way to start the Justice League movies would be in media res. All the characters are already there. We don't really need to know because they're such famous characters, and then we can build them along the way. But instead start with Doom or the Tower of Babel storyline. And then from there kind of like move like through the other storylines. Like that would actually, that's such an interesting way of looking at it.
I mean, if you think about it, like though Marvel did it with like they did like the Iron Man movies and they did Captain America. If you really think about like the big blockbuster movie that most people saw, it is the Avengers films, right? Like the first Avenger film, which is like a great way. You could have like these other movies which was anyway happening, so people could always go back and figure out the history of all of these like comic book characters and movies. But it would have been amazing if you just started off with a big bang, so to speak, like just with your main flagship thing, and then continue the storylines through that, and like see like things sporadic shooting off from that space.
I used to think that perhaps what scared DC and Warner Brothers away from doing like movies where they just threw you into the story is that it will be confusing to the general public, right? So you have to explain like, okay, this is who Batman is, this is where he came from, this is why him and Superman like get along or sometimes don't get along or whatever. With Flashpoint, for example, you'd think like, okay, will it be too confusing for people if we suddenly say like, what if Bruce Wayne wasn't Batman and Thomas Wayne was Batman and Martha Wayne was the Joker? But they essentially did that with Joker film, where they said, "Hey, what if Thomas Wayne was Joker's dad? Maybe he is, maybe he isn't." And people went along with it, and people got it. So clearly, you don't have to babysit the audience anymore.
I think the table setting of Batman is done, like forever. You like, pun intended.
Yeah, for sure.
You don't need to ever do those things again. But like, and just to kind of talk about Flashpoint, the movie, which they're kind of making right now with Andy Muschietti and Ezra Miller. And, you know, there's talks of Michael Keaton kind of, and I'm just like,
back. Yeah.
I'm scared because I'm scared for the same reason Dark Phoenix and The Last Stand, the X-Men films failed, right? Because they had tried to tackle the Dark Phoenix saga, which is incredibly dense thing in one movie, and then kind of put subplots in it. Ezra Miller's first kind of solo film as the Flash has never been done as a film. And the first movie is, let me go back and save my mother in my own origin story, and that's going to change time irrevocably for the DC universe. But people aren't aware that, you know, how important that death of Barry Allen's mom and Henry Allen and, you know, Zoom, which you can't use anymore as a villain name because it's just too ubiquitous now. They're just going to call him Reverse Flash, I think, forever, or Eobard Thawne. But you know, that weight will be missing. But when Joker says, "Oh, Thomas Wayne could be my father," then like, but that makes sense because I've seen it happen before. I don't know.
Yeah, I see. I'll tell you what, I would agree with you, but then I also like think about like, and I'm going to say something controversial here. I say if you think about the Watchmen and V for Vendetta, in the Watchmen movie especially, you're just thrown into that universe, right? And you can just like see where it comes through. So I think actually instead of concentrating so hard about like where these characters came from, if they invested time in just like making good films and good storylines and seeing that way, I think that would have worked anyway. But they just like they constantly like weighed down by, let's talk about the history of how this guy came up, but everybody knows the history. And you said something really interesting. Actually, the reason I first thought about this is about a movie you actually mentioned over here, which was like Batman Assault on Arkham. So like Assault on Arkham should have been the Suicide Squad movie. And because you don't need the Suicide Squad. The Suicide Squad doesn't need like a world-ending kind of storyline. Like they don't need a world-ending villain. They just need a guy who needs to be murdered. Like that's the whole thing. So why did you go down this whole Enchantress route? I just couldn't get it. Like I couldn't.
Oh my god. We don't speak about Suicide Squad on these shows, Shaun.
Did they make a live-action movie about that? I might have missed it. I should check it out one of these days.
Let me ask you this: did you watch Suicide Squad: Hell to Pay?
No, that's one that I missed in this series. Actually.
Both of you need to watch that movie like now. I won't spoil it, but it has a lot to do. If you love Flashpoint, you are not ready for that movie. Like all the films that have come out in this new 52 kind of continuity, right? Where they said we're going to have the same actors. Let's just put one kind of continuity of like say 14 films, I think totally, starting with 15. Flashpoint and ending with ending with Justice League
Apocalypse
War.
Yeah.
Oof, my god, that title is a mouthful. But overall, I think you're right. You know, it does a job as the Infinity Saga does. You know, to kind of bookend, you know, the entire arc. It's like it's incredibly well done and quite an amazing effort from all of them.
I think the movie universe was crying for that to happen, and like there's so many other like films which aren't really interconnected into this universe but are still like amazing. Like one of my favorite films in this universe is actually Batman versus Robin. Like that is
so good. That's the Court of Owls what do you call it, storyline. Yeah, so good.
I mean, not all Snyders ruin the DC stuff.
Oh, there's only one who's
one good Snyder.
Good Snyder, seriously.
And man, and okay, so, of course, like Batman versus Robin, especially because of the Court of Owls, like has like I'm really fond of that comic book, like that entire anthology. Because in New 52, only I honestly think the Batman run in New 52 was the only good one. Because Batman has like one of the best rogue galleries, and to think that the owl or an owl-like villain never existed when the owl is the natural predator of bats.
Well, there is one instance of it in prior to this New 50, the DC animated timeline, which was Crisis on Two Earths, where they go
Oh
and
yeah, okay, where the owl. Okay, fair.
yeah, so Owl Man, I think he's called,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
he's played by James Woods, who's like Batman's equal on the opposite
yeah.
kind of mirror image side. So yeah, that's the only other
Okay.
instance of it.
Yeah, man,
Timeline.
because
So
like
it'd be
Scott
cool.
Snyder has done such a great job with Batman, and including Greg Capullo, and his artwork in this thing is
so good.
just so good. And for anyone who enjoyed like the Spawn series, like Greg Capullo is like the guy who did, like, he penned it. All of what you think about as Spawn is like Greg Capullo's work, right? So having him do Batman and this gritty form of it is so good. And then, I mean, the other thing I wanted to talk about is like my other great like Batman love was Metal, and Scott Snyder
Let's do
is
it.
there involved. So
Tell us about it.
I mean,
Nice.
That looks so good, by the way.
Oh man, like, if you know what is amazing about Metal, it is such a strange comic book, because like they start off by talking about the multiverse, and like there's this like map laid down of the multiverse, and then like we know all about this about the multiverse, and then there's something we don't know, and like everyone like the Justice League is, what don't we know? And they turn the map upside down, and this is the dark multiverse.
Yeah.
It's literally just turning the. And I was like,
That
wow,
is so
okay, cool. That makes sense. Usually, in all of these events, people are dying all the time. Like whenever DC does a big event, you're hoping someone dies.
Yeah.
But Metal is one I think that like I can't think of any character who actually died in Metal. Like none of the main characters died. The villains die, but like the heroes don't die. So it's like a fun, crazy comic book which has all of Batman's alter ego villains in it. So they have someone called Red Death, who is a version of Flash. So Batman steals like the Speed Force, and then he becomes the Flash and kills everyone. But unlike Flash, who has like lightning bolts in him, like Red Death has bats coming out of the back of him, and if those bats touch anyone, they die. Which is like, wow. My mind was blown. So yeah, so like it's like, that's why I love Metal. But anyway, I digress too much. I must go back to.
So Shaun, just to come back to the DC animated universe, can you tell us maybe out of the 15 films, your top 3, like which are your favorites, and maybe why
for sure.
you kind
Batman
of like them?
versus Robin, like number one, for sure.
Yeah.
One that we haven't spoken about right now, but I think is really, really good, is Throne of Atlantis, which is the one about Aquaman, which I again wish was the Aquaman film. Like I genuinely wish that was the Aquaman film. Beat for beat, it hits the same things that the Aquaman film does, but I just felt like the pacing of this film was way better. Like that's the same. Essentially, it's the same.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that beat for beat, like they could have copied it. Like, and if you've like watched the last one, which was Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, all of these films have slowly over time started becoming like R-rated, like in the sense that they are all like PG-15, because there's all the F-bombs, all the blood and the gore. Like it's about as violent as or like normal as like any film, so they could have like really just adapted it straight up. And I think that's why Marvel has done it really well, where they took like Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely, like who were writers from comic books originally, and then went to the TV shows, the animated TV shows, then started writing for Avengers and with the Russos and stuff like that. So the guys are so intimately like they know the characters so well, but I don't think they've done the same thing for the DC universe. I don't know if they've written.
I mean, they tried with Jeff Johns.
Yeah, Jeff Johns has like written so many of the comic books.
But the mistakes that they made might have been trying to ape the Marvel model too closely.
And too late.
Yeah, and too late. And it doesn't work for these characters. But whenever they have been successful is when they've gone off the Marvel path. Like their most successful movies are ones where they've ignored basically trying to photocopy what Marvel has done and done their own thing and done justice to their characters.
Yeah.
It's a shame that they haven't been able to adapt it well.
Yeah, that's the only.
You've given us 2 so far, right, Shaun?
Yeah, I've said 2. So like the third one I was going to think about, okay, this is like a toss-up. Can I cheat a little bit? Like that's what I was thinking about.
Please.
Okay, so the one that I like is actually Batman Hush, because I kind of like how they didn't stick to the original comic book.
Yeah.
Like that's what I like that, because I was when I was watching it, I was expecting what I read in the comic, and just because of like that last bit they changed the end of it, I was like, wow, this was a good twist. Like I liked how they did Hush. And the last one I would say, like, which matters to me at least, is Reign of Superman. The Reign of Superman was a great film.
It was a two-parter, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
I mean, it starts with Death of Superman.
Death of Superman, Reign of Superman. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. That's how they should have done Doomsday, I feel, genuinely. And of course, like seeing like Steel when I was growing up.
Love Steel. Oh my God. I was just going to say that.
Was amazing because Shaquille O'Neal played Steel.
Shaq, bro. I mean, it's all about Shaq. And that ridiculous uniform he was.
Yes. Like they didn't have enough prosthetics to put it on Shaq's body, so it, like just.
I swear, like they don't even cover his entire face. Like it's so funny, dude. Oh my gosh, I remember watching that at home.
Yeah, so like having Steel, like every time I see Steel, I think of Shaq. So that was also like a thing, and then.
All right, so with that, Shaun, we come to the end of your very, on point ramble on how the DC animated universe, the actual EU or the EU as we call it in retrospect, and yeah, it completely checks out. And I think you're right. I think they need to maybe like trust the source material a lot more because it's tried and tested, like it works.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would be really nice for them to kind of do that, or maybe just do their own thing and like like Dinkar said, kind of spin off and just have their own way of like approaching the films as opposed to kind of mimicking the Marvel universe. Cool. Okay, Shaun. So it's time for our hot takes segment. We really need to coin a name for this part of the show, but for now it's just called Random Hot Takes from the guest who is on Crossover Event. That's the full name. We'll shorten it presently. Dinkar, why don't you explain what this section is about and then hit Shaun with a bunch of pop culture titles.
It's pretty simple, Shaun. Basically, we're going to ask you your opinion on various topics, and you have to give us your succinct and hopefully controversial take on them.
Yeah, we're looking for juicy material.
Okay, cool. Go for it. This will be fun. Okay, guys, come on.
Asterix versus Tintin. What camp are you?
Oh, Asterix. Like, sorry, a question with me, man. I mean, I had both growing up because we used to move so much because my dad was in the Navy. So I had to give away a whole bunch of those comic books. And like when I started getting a salary, the first thing I did was buy all my Asterix comics because I just love that. I don't have a single Tintin comic. I just have Asterix.
Did you ever read Tintin, or was it like?
Yeah, of course. I had all. I read.
So why would you prefer Asterix over Tintin?
Because I used to laugh like a lot more in Asterix. The humor was amazing, and I just think I think the colors, like the way they like penciled everything in that, it just like gave me like a much happier feeling. I think Tintin was a little more boxy, and like it didn't like it all felt a little too serious. So I mean, I love Snowy. And I think Snowy is better than Dogmatics. That's like my most controversial opinion about this. Like as a puppy.
That's a hot take.
All right. Next.
The Hobbit Trilogy, Shaun. What do you think of it?
So I've never been a big like Lord of the Rings kind of fan. I would watch the films and they were anyway exceedingly long. And then you took one book and extended it over 3 films. And I just felt like, I mean, I never got into The Hobbit at all. Like I don't even remember most of that storyline, if I'm honest. But yeah, I think it was a waste of time. Like you could be done, like the Lord of the Rings was long enough. Like there was enough of like content over there. You didn't have to explore The Hobbit at all. Like no one was asking for it. You just didn't have to do it.
All right. Let's ask you about something that is germane to the topic of discussion today. What do you think of the whole Snyder Cut situation?
I think it's going to be deeply unnecessarily, and it's like very, very painful. Like,
deeply unnecessary is the way to put that. It's the best way to define it. Yeah.
Because like I had huge hopes for Zack Snyder, and I mean I'm such a DC guy. Like I was one of those guys who would like, I don't care how great the Marvel films are doing, but like the DC films are better. Like I was just like I was delusional. Like that's how much I genuinely love DC compared to Marvel. and like, so I would give like Snyder chance after chance after chance. Like he pretty much like destroyed my idea. Like Batman versus Superman was bad, but I was still like rooting for Justice League. And then like I just don't know, man. Like I'll watch it. Like make no mistake about it. I'm 100% gonna watch it. But I also think that you could use that money somewhere else. Make like one of these animated films into a movie instead. Like that's my thought of that.
Next is, give us your favorite live action Spider-Man.
Tobey Maguire. Like there's no one else besides Tobey Maguire. The second one, the one with Dr. Octopus in it, like that's like my fave live action Spider-Man for sure. I mean,
Nice.
I get like where they're going right now with it, but I just generally like the older Spider-Man. Like I just found like that train scene is so good. Like that's
So many people talk about that train scene, you know, like whenever we bring up like Spider-Man, it's just like, it's embedded into people's minds because it's so iconic.
Oh, I mean, the two scenes that are iconic from that like franchise, right? The other one's like the kissing scene, like with the upside down thing, which everyone like reps, and the train scene. Like they have like two shots in there, which everyone's gonna remember, I think, forever.
Shaun, thank you so much for being on Crossover Event. Do you want to plug
you,
anything?
guys.
Now's the chance. What do you
I fully fanboyed over this. I've been dying to do something like this with you guys for so long. So yeah, plugs. I mean, please listen to the Made in India shows if you guys get a chance.
Does Made in India have any merch?
Oh yeah, sure. Oops, there it is. Hey.
Great.
But no, what I would ask you guys to do if you can is like a couple of our shows have been nominated for the People's Choice Podcast Awards, and if you could go and vote for Made in India, She Says She's Fine, which is a women's health show that we do, The Lit Pickers, which is a show about books and literature, and No Sugarcoat, and support our shows, that'd be amazing. That's my plug.
Congratulations on all of that, man. That's amazing. It's quite an achievement. We're super proud of you guys.
Link also below, guys. Link below.
Link below. For sure. Why not? Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. We have the technology.
Okay.
Bye, Shaun.
Bye, guys. That's how you do it. I don't know how to get out of this. Like.